Hey everybody, and welcome back to Lindsey's Little Library. So today is April 4th and it is election day and I'm super excited. So a lot of the spring elections tend to focus on your local government. And if you've been here a while, you know that my husband is very involved with local government and is actually on the ballot right now. So fingers crossed that we make it through. So I thought in honor of election day and my, I don't know, I've been following politics for a little bit now, I would give some book recommendations of books set in Washington, D.C. Plus we just went there, so that helps as well. So if you have just watched my book haul, I did pick up a couple of books in Washington, D.C. that are centered around Washington, D.C. Maybe not so much this one, but I know this one talks about chasing Lincoln's killer, obviously, and this one talks about a number of historical influences within our history, and then different historians kind of wrote it. It's a collection of short stories, but it follows like John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln, and so forth. So those are pretty easy ones. A few I've read recently, though, is I did read The Senator's Wife by Liv Constantine. This isn't quite released yet. I don't remember when it's released. I'll leave all that below. But if we remember Liv Constantine, they wrote The Last Mrs. Parrish, which I absolutely loved. And so I got an early copy of The Senator's Wife and decided to read that as we were in DC because I do stuff like that. So this follows a few different people. So at the beginning of the book, there are two couples. Both of the men are senators, and we really focus on kind of their wives. And there's an incident that happens that really kind of reshapes what this friendship looks like. And this involves, of course, some corruption. There's some politics involved. It's a crazy ride, and I don't want to say anything more because I feel like you just need to. I went into this blind, and I enjoyed the fact that I went into this blind. Other than like be prepared for this ride because it was fantastic. I think I gave it 4 stars. It was really, really good. The next one I want to talk about is The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, and so this follows our couple who the wife is a very prominent defense attorney in Washington, D.C., like one of the best in the country, very career focused and super supportive of her husband, who they actually have a lake house where he goes, and he is an author. So he would go there for, you know, a number of days and be writing and being away from things and come back home and whatever. Until one day he wakes up at the lake house and his mistress, who he's been seeing, is next to him and dead. And he's kind of the main suspect. So now his wife has to find out about it, plus needs to represent him and be his defense attorney because there is no one better. So this one, again, wild ride. It's fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it. All right, a couple of books that I have not yet read. So I have Sammy's House by Kristen Gore. This is the second book. The first one is called Sammy's Hill, following Sammy Joyce, who works in Washington. So in this specific book, she has a job at the White House as a healthcare advisor for a newly elected administration. And we go from there. I don't want to do too much more because obviously I don't want to spoil the first book, but I really did enjoy the first book. She also, I believe, worked in the White House at that time, but a different position, and actually had to work with her ex, which made it just super interesting. So there's this book I want to pick up. I have Campaign Widows by Amy Agresti, which every time my husband runs for election, I promise myself to read this one. I never get to it. But this follows, let's see how many. There are a number of women, and they call themselves the Campaign Widows, that basically find themselves somewhat alone as their husbands are seeking re-election. Obviously takes place in DC and talks about kind of the bonds between them. So, and the drama, I'm sure. Anyways, I'm excited for that one. Next one I have Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. Oh. This one of my book of the month ones, it's what happens when America's first son falls in love with the Prince of Wales. I've heard really great things about this one. Definitely need to get to it. Actually, my daughter was wanting to read this, so maybe we'll read it together. Next one I have is What Could Be Saved by Lise O'Halloran. Halloran Schwartz. I am not on it with games or with names today. So we have dual timelines. Washington, D.C., 2019, we have Laura is a reclusive artist at odds with her older sister, Beatrice, as their elegant, formidable mother slowly slides into dementia. When a stranger contacts Laura claiming to be her brother who disappeared over 50 years ago, when the family was living in Bangkok, she ignores her sister's warnings that it's a scam and don't go and don't do this, and she ends up flying to Thailand to see if it's true. So when we go back in time to Bangkok, 1972, Genevieve and Robert Preston live in a house behind a high wall, raising their 3 children with the help of a number of servants. They're very unfamiliar surroundings. Genevieve is pretty much out of her comfort zone, but she's trying to create a semblance of life that they would have if they were at home in the United States. So there's ballet, riding classes for the kids, dinner parties. But in truth, Robert works for the American intelligence, and Genevieve finds herself drawn into a passionate affair with her husband's boss. And their serene household is vulnerable to unseen dangers in the rapidly changing world in a country that they don't really understand. So what happens? I don't know. It sounds super interesting, and this cover is gorgeous. I've got, I guess, what some would consider a classic on my list. We have The Pelican Brief by John Grisham. Picked this one up at the Goodwill. I believe, let's see, late one night, Justice Abe Rosenberg is a 91 Supreme Court liberal legend and shot in the head while sleeping in his Georgetown home. 2 hours later, the court's youngest and most conservative justice is strangled, possibly by the same assassin. The country is stunned and baffled, and the FBI is clueless. This brings in Darby Shaw. All I can picture is the movie with Julia Roberts, and it's fantastic. So it's actually quite short. Like, I could get this done in a weekend, right? I don't know, but I've heard really great things about it. I'm sure you all are just yelling at me that I need to pick up that book. Then, of course, we won't be complete with some good old-fashioned historical fiction. We have Mrs. Lincoln's Dressmaker by Jennifer Chivalrini, which, again, I really need to start trying to read her books. I have like 6 of them. So we have, let's see, in a life that spanned nearly a century and witnessed some of the most momentous events in American history, Elizabeth Hobbs Keckley was born a slave. She earned her freedom by the skill of her needle and won the friendship of First Lady Mary Todd Lincoln with her devotion. In her sweeping historical novel, this by best-selling author Jennifer Sweeney, blah, 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 it illuminates the extraordinary relationship the 2 women shared beginning in the hallowed halls of the White House during the trials of the Civil War and enduring almost, but not quite, to the end of Mrs. Lincoln's days, obviously based on a real person, based on a real story. I'm excited. And this cover is just really, really pretty. What's the inside look like? It's kind of boring, but love it. So those are my Washington, D.C. books. I know I was thinking of a few other ones. I believe The Golden Couple by Greer Hendricks is also set in D.C. Oh, that's a crazy one. That's like where this seemingly perfect couple is going through some therapy, and the therapist that they hire is a little non-conventional. Like, I don't think she's even licensed, and has them go through some interesting procedures or interesting discussions and kind of work through their stuff. I don't know. It was really good. I listened to that book and was definitely into it. So anyways, those are my small stack of books set in Washington, D.C. I'm sure I have more behind me. I didn't want to have 1,000 books to share with you. But I'm thinking to get through Tuesday, to get through today, maybe I'll pick up one of these and try to bust through it, just, in honor. Anyways, if you're seeing this and there is an election around your area, highly encourage you to get out and vote. Voting is so important to all of us. So make sure your vote counts, and fingers crossed for today. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.